What was it like, right, when you're a kid, being brought up in Norway? What were you listening to? What was around at that point?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing. It was, I mean, the radio, we played maybe 1 hour a week, pop music.
There was mainly one radio station when we grew up, so there wasn't this kind of huge menu of different styles to kind of that would bombard you.
I was very interested in other things, you know. I was into insects, butterflies and things. I was turning the rocks and stones that I could find to see what was underneath, you know. So that's really what occupied you know, all my time and my imagination.
I used to go to a record store and just like look at the cover and just imagine what the music would be. So you would say, "Can I listen to this?" And you would stand there for half a day and try to get some. You know, so
records were extremely important. You went and you discovered new groups, and you really kind of had to cultivate your own taste. You know, you really had to look for it.
The first music that I ever heard, and remember, I at that point I know nothing at all. I know the piano, and I don't listen to the radio or anything. You know? And then
Excellent. It's going to be really embarrassing, isn't it?
A cousin of mine has been to England, and he comes back with an album.
Don't blame it on us.
And then he comes back with an album by Uriah Heep. This is in 74, I think.
Yeah, brilliant.
And it knocks me completely out, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, the first record I really listened to was their kind of Burt Bacharach stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, Henrik's was one of the first albums I bought. So
Right, yeah.
Steppenwolf and Henrik's. And
Yeah.
So I kind of got the 60s a little later.
The first that I remember very clearly was a purple Jimi Hendrix kind of compilation record.
Wow.
That was like music kind of opened up then and became a complete obsession.
I decided to make a band. Yeah. And at that point, I don't know there are any other bands in Norway, and I was thinking to myself that it's strange. I mean, this is so exciting. Yeah. How come no one's ever thought of doing this in Norway?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, of course.
Of course, there were hundreds of bands just outside my door.
Yeah. How young were you when you thought, "No, I'm going to get in a band. I'm going to make it as a career, or going to just see if I can do it"?
Yeah, I don't know. It just the writing always came sort of easy to me. You know, it was really. I met the sort of local rival band down the road, and it was only when I met them that I realized I wrote songs too. You know? So it was kind of like, oh, is that what it's called, type of thing, you know. So I really early got into that and lyrics and stuff like that. And
how long have you known Paul for?
Since we were 12 and 11, I think.
Right. Wow. And that's just, so it's like schoolmate.
Yeah. Well, we were different levels in school, but we used to live very, very close to each other.
He was basically a neighbor. He just lived like 2-3 houses down.
Yeah.
So he had his own band. I had my own band. I played drums at that time.
Paul's father had made him a drum kit of cardboard boxes.
Excellent.
And he was holding like this impromptu concert on a balcony. And I was like looking at I was like, wow, this is so great. I gotta talk to these guys. And so I explained I had a grandfather who had a bass amp and I had a guitar. Wow. So when you had that, you were immediately wanted, you know.
He played guitar, and you know, we went through like 50 different typical lineups, you know, trying different angles.
We've all been there.
I went to bass and I started keyboard, and that's kind of like in a way a very big it sort of guided our career, I think, because we didn't become sort of these sort of technical players.
Right.
We learned to play a lot of instruments, sort of half good.
Right.
And so we got into the whole 60s thing. Paul and I got into the whole you know, starting with the Beatles and then moving on to more hardcore stuff like Jimmy and Janis and the Doors finally kind of landing there, and that was a huge influence throughout our many different bands.
Right.
With names kind of wandering in towards. I mean, one band, the kind of the longest running band we had was called Bridges. And, it's not so far off.
Yeah.
I believe I was about 20,
Right.
I think, or 19. I heard them play for the first time.
Yeah.
And that was a turning point for me, because at that point I'd been going in and out of different groups, and there was nothing in me that thought that there would be anything to come out of Norway.
I read somewhere that Morten said, great band, but you need a singer. Was that true?
Depends where you want to take it, you know.
Oh, right, no, I don't mean, well, whether it's negative or positive, but like, if whatever it meant, if someone come up to me and said that, I'd be like, what fucking good version. But did you know him anyway before that?
I didn't really know him. He was sort of, I think Mags knew him more than I did.
Yeah.
He was very into kind of like Queen and that type of stuff, which was not my bag.
Yeah.
I saw, you know, what it took in a way, and I knew that this is of international standard or stature or whatever.
Wow.
And I also knew that they needed me to sing, you know.
Destiny.
But but I didn't say anything, and it was to take another 2 years, I think.
You know, but we had that kind of very early on set that we're going to go to England and sort of try to really do something.
We met Morten about a year before we left, and he was studying at the time. So we just kind of we couldn't really wait for him. So we left and tried it on our own.
Yeah.
We were not seeking each other for the musical abilities, but for the spirit in a way, for the
meeting of the minds,
for what you're after in a sense, what you're going after, the focus, or
there was something about that Morten guy. Something that was clicking there. Maybe we should go back to Norway just for like a couple of weeks and try a couple of demos out, and that's what happened.
So, how long were you together as a VallHall before like the crazy single came out and it all went whoa?
That crazy single was the first thing that I ever heard them play.
The Take on Me.
The riff from Take on Me.
Right. What was that called before they was going to call it?
It was called Lesson 1 for a while.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Love it. You couldn't not quite the same ring, really, is it?
But we didn't. No, we chose we didn't like the title.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really. It was like a working title, so we went for a much worse title.
Yeah, which was that?
Take on Me.
Oh right, no. Tell me what, because I just cannot fathom what it must have been like to like. So you formed the band and everything, and then you have, you know, Take on Me, and then suddenly overnight almost, that it just goes bang, and you success, America, England. I mean, how do you cope with that?
You're so happy because at that point there's like 2 years of people telling you you'll get so busy that you'll go crazy, and you're just so bored and you just want to get so going. So you're like, you've heard it so much, you don't really believe it anymore, you know. So when it finally happens, it's not like, you don't really get tired after the first 10 months. Then you start to say, whoa, this is getting too much, much at the same time, you know. After like a few of those Japanese, you know, interviews from 10 in the morning to 10 in the evening, half an hour.
Yeah, when your mouth's
but I mean,
like
we were so young at that point that we could really, we could go for a long time without getting, you know. Yeah. But it sort of struck you when you got a Grammy nomination and you went to that kind of thing, and it was like, you look on the other people and they're so nervous for you that you start to get nervous yourself, you know. It's like, oh shit, they're freaking out.
Yeah. I don't know if I did cope with it. I mean, I pretended I was coping with it, and kept the act going for a long time. But eventually,
was
kind
inside
of
going, oh.
Yeah, it was kind of panicky for a long time. I think most of the stuff that happened since the breakup of the band was due to the fact that you were still kind of suffering the shock waves of the first round.
All of a sudden, your whole life is evolved around a security guard, you know, and he's looking after you, and he ends up brushing your teeth in the end. You go in and out of airports and hotels, and you very quickly you stop using the lobby, the main entrance. You just go through the back doors of everything. Yeah. And there's no time really to digest things and to find out whether you're doing the right thing even.
Right.
So you know, but we start to after 6 months of this, we are really starting to wear. Yeah. And we're not happy about what we're doing because it's about nothing, the whole thing, you know. So that in the end hit us very hard.
What do you mean? How long in did that hit you hard?
At that point, after 6 months, we were really completely exhausted and drained and fed up with doing nothing. Yeah. We were not being a band. Right. We were not really, you know, we were just not popping around. No outlet, you know. Yeah. No, nothing. So all you do is pose for pictures or not pose or whatever, whichever.
What's the sort of weirdest small place? Like I can imagine you turning up in the middle of Alice
Lebanon
Springs.
Was up
Lebanon,
there.
Really? Yeah. Wow, well, that must have been...
That was in Beirut, and I think they've built up a lot of that stuff now, but it was totally shot to bits.
Bullet holes everywhere.
Yeah. And your hotel room had like sprays of bullet holes, and I remember on stage, and Mags was standing over here, and above him was a big hole filled in with concrete, which was a grenade hole. And they weren't quite sure whether that was going to come out with all of the sound starting to.
You see that
so he kind of moved back like 10 paces on that stage. He was like, oh, where did he go?
We changed something as well in Norway. We changed, I don't know, maybe it would have changed without us too, but I think with us, the kind of excuse disappeared a little bit that you couldn't make it as a Norwegian act. And then all of a sudden, everybody who had a record contract was going to be the biggest thing since sliced bread. And of course, that didn't happen either. So I think, but there was definitely an attitude change through the 80s.
Yeah. I imagine that it must be a freak out and hard to deal with like friends and family, because obviously they've known you as a kid, and to you, you're just like, oh, Johnny Blocks around the corner who's in a bit of a band, and suddenly, there you are. How was that? That must have been quite hard, no?
Yeah, because they probably changed more than we do, you know. So, and you find that a little bit embarrassing because you don't feel that different. It's obviously cool with success and stuff like that, but it looks obviously much more glamorous, much more everything from the outside, you know. So you try to, being Norwegian, you try to kind of go to tone it down. But I mean, looking back, we did a lot of sort of very few bands get to be a part of. You know, there was a success there that was rare in this business. So,
what was touring like? I mean, especially in those first years, that must have been. Was it like that mad rock and roll stories that people talk about? Like, was that the same for Aha as well?
Not really. I remember we had a press conference in Piccadilly just before we went on the world tour. And I remember looking out, and there was this crowd of people blocking all of Piccadilly Circus, and of course the English policemen with a very kind of characteristic uniforms. Yeah. And I remember thinking for one split second, wow, this really happened, you know, in a strange way. But from then on, us touring kind of was, I don't know. I never really allowed myself to be. I was kind of too enclosed when we were touring in the first rounds. I wasn't really digging it. You know, I had too much kind of things that I wanted to have different, or I wasn't happy with my own performances or with the band's status. There were so many things that you worried about that's changed now. Now it's more like you really you appreciate how much fun it can be, and you really want it to be the best it can be, and you feel more relaxed, more self-assured, and I think that that sort of makes it easier on the audience too.
Yeah.
And to begin with, we were relying on the sequences and a lot of things like that. And I don't even know what we sounded like because we were probably horrible.
Yeah. Have you ever forgot your words on stage to a song? Have you ever gone?
Ever? Always.
Do you?
Yeah.
And how do you buffle out of it?
The best thing is to fall asleep right away when you go on stage, because then you do it instinctively. The moment you wake up is the dangerous part,
Right. So when you...
No, I'm kind of kidding, but it's what happens. You invariably you end up on autopilot when you've toured for a while.
Yeah, of course.
And it's when you wake up, you sort of pull yourself out of those. That's when you're, whoops, where am I? It's a strange thing, because it doesn't mean that you're not. It doesn't mean you're not there, but you're there in a kind of in a different room somehow.
We adapted very quickly to the kind of status that we were given. I moved back to Norway in '92, and I guess it was to try to find the country that I had left behind more than. I don't know that it. I'm sure people changed drastically, but I sort of spent a few years trying to hang out with the same people that before I left, and try to kind of be very insular about my life. But in the end, you just kind of have to. You have to a certain degree, just accept that things are different and just get on with it. It's not such a big deal.
So then obviously came a little break, and you all sort of went your separate ways and done your own little thing. How did that break? Was that sort of little, I don't like you, or was it just like it just felt it was time to like move along?
I think our last album in '92, we didn't want to just do singles anymore. We wanted to make like more of an album.
Yeah.
Get into more of a playing. I think we kind of sensed that the '90s were coming. We wanted to get away all the reverb and all the sort of, just to kind of simplify. Yeah. And that is a hard one to change that much in the climate. It's hard to bring all your fans with you.
Yes. Yeah.
And.
And
I think for me, I was totally happy with that, but I think AHA is sort of based around having a certain amount of success. That's how we started, and I think it's hard for us to kind of to go that route. Yeah. So personally, I like that route.
One of the reasons that we could come back today with our head up high is the fact that a lot of our peers recognized that we worked as a very serious band. It was very serious about what we did, and that the status that we had in the first round was kind of due to the massive impact we had when we first came out, and it sort of stuck with us for a long time.
So what happened what was the feelings when someone approached you about the Nobel Peace Festival? Was it like, oh, that's going to be a bit spooky?
Well, they did that like 2-3 years in a row.
Oh, right.
It was like,
so they keep reeling you in.
Yes, in the end it was like kind of embarrassing to say no.
Right.
And
right.
But it was kind of like, what are we going to play? That was the main thing. We can't come on and play an old song.
Right, yeah.
And you don't want to just do like some stuff that we had lying around.
Yeah.
So, it would be nice to do something that was kind of written for that night. Right. So I was very happy to come up with that song. That Summer moved on. And
I was very skeptical.
Yeah.
Simply because I really liked my own time, and I enjoyed doing what I was doing. Yeah. I recorded an album in '95, which has done a lot of good for me, and it's when I started writing songs on my own, and it's really what I want to do. It's where I'm going, and for me to go back into the AHA thing was like many steps, backtracking, whatever.
But I think we were really aware of that this could be sort of turned to overload very fast. So we really wanted to sneak in. So we kept telling each other, okay, we just do this.
Yeah.
Well, maybe one more, you know, that kind of, have another, you know. So it was a very sort of gentle, just tasting it a little bit.
But, you know, we were all kind of hesitant, you know.
Yeah, no.
But at that,
they said that it was like, it's quite weird.
Yeah, it was.
Because everyone says the same thing. It's like, you know, it was like, I don't know. But then it seemed to drift, and it actually
But what happened? When I heard those demos, when I heard about 5 or 6 songs, then that really changed, because that was the spirit of the band that I knew once, you know.
So it had reawakened itself.
You know, then I really got into trouble because I was very confident and very strong about what I want to do myself. You know? But at the same time, I knew that that this meant something too, and and I felt. You know, I felt that I had to, that it was right of me to pursue it and at least take a closer look.
And only after 7 years now did we feel that there was a point to try and collaborate together again and see. Because now there's enough time gone by so you can look back and say, oh, it wasn't, you know, there was some great stuff on all the records and some shit stuff on all the records, and we can just kind of celebrate it more than be desperately seeking to leave things behind us all the time.
Yeah. Last question. When you look back at them photos from the 80s, laugh or cry?
It's laughter that turns into crying.
Say no more.
Okay.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks a lot. Cheers for that.